Welcome to Thriller Bitcoin. Welcome to Thriller Bitcoin.
Take a straight and stronger course to the corner of your life. Make the White Queen run so fast, she hasn't got time to make you a wife. 'Cause it's time in time with your time, and this news is captured. For the Queen to use, move me on to any black square. Use me anytime you want. Just remember that the goal is for us all to capture all we want. Don't surround yourself with yourself. Move on back to squares. Send an instant comment to me. Initial it with a loving care. Surround yourself. 'Cause it's time in time with your time, and this news is captured. For the Queen to use.
Privacy, huh?
Privacy. Who cares about it?
Dude, why do you think, like, I want to have you on because I want to talk about privacy mainly, and we can talk about everything else, but why do you think privacy is important? Like especially in Bitcoin. I understand why it's important in the Lightning Network, and I should probably separate the two from like real world privacy to like Bitcoin privacy, and then people that are like really on the other side of like it's just like privacy at all costs kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. There's a little bit of, the whole thing with privacy is selective disclosure, right? Like I choose what information I want out there in the world, and I choose what people see, what they don't see. And, to a degree, you don't, some people go as far as saying like privacy is a right. And I think that only works as long as you have the right terminology for privacy. So like, you have the right to seek your own privacy, right? Because like once information's out there, like let's say, someone sees you doing something bad. That's information already out there. You have no control of it at that point in time. So the idea that, privacy is a right, or that, I have the, right to hide, and if I'm hiding, then everyone else has to respect that or whatever. But it's really just about what being able to choose what information you have out there, and in a way, anytime you interact with something, I mean, going outside and there's like fucking security cameras everywhere. I'm you could say that like, well, now I can't even like go outside without being recorded without my consent.
Dude, like all of downtown Austin is recorded on the streets.
Yeah. It gets to the point where it's like, well, I'm making that decision to walk on the street anyways, knowing that I'm being recorded, probably being run through, facial scans and all of that, right? I mean, you walk through the airport and you just have like zero privacy whatsoever. So it's really just about like, what, at this point, just being able to have that sense of, whatever you can control, to try to control that, just like to minimize the amount, or, people have different preferences, but to be able to minimize, for me, the amount of information out there that could really like be used against you whenever someone has a story they want to tell, whenever someone wants to go after you for a specific reason. Because you may think you're like all fine and dandy, right? And then turns out something you did 10 years ago, when you were just like a stupid kid, or, you were doing something that like socially was acceptable 10 years ago, and now you're being hunted down for it. Like that's the level of like practical privacy that I think many people can kind of agree with. Like stuff in our past coming up and now coming to haunt us. I mean, specifically in the Bitcoin space, it's like, what we're doing now is all fine, right? Like Bitcoin's not big enough where it's like they care about like actually trying to persecute us. But it could be. So, I'm not saying I'm protected from that. I try to seek as much privacy as I can, like reasonable, while still being a person in Austin that can walk down the street and hang out with friends and go to meetups and stuff. But it's not perfect privacy. And I don't think there's a such thing as perfect privacy. It's really just like, can you try to get whatever your threat model is, can you try to get that from the tools that are available in like a practical sense? So like things like using Signal instead of text message. Like I got my family set up on Signal finally when I went back home for Christmas. And, my parents were like, well, why like this, like I'm only talking to you on this one app. This is the only app I can talk to you on. And I'm like, well, that's the only app I use. That's the only app. Like, I don't want every single text message to like one day, someone texted me something random, like in a text message on a phone I don't use for text. And it was like, wanting to, figure out where to buy drugs or something. I was like, can't help you with that. Like for one, you just said that through text, through clear text message. And for two, if you want to say things like that to me, you should download Signal.
Yeah.
like there's, and it's just like being able to, in hindsight, like you look at all the cases where, especially Bitcoiners, right, where they've, gotten snatched up or they've gotten like thrown in jail. I mean, the tiniest mistake, mistake will come back.
Talk about that. Cause I have seen it like on RHR where Odell would just be like in a sad mood, bro, because like one of his homies like got locked up or got, offed. Like talk about that. I don't think we talk about that enough in the space.
Yeah. Well, there's one that I keep bringing up that not a lot of people know about, and it's this like thing in New Hampshire that's going on. And I forget the exact names of the people involved. But it's essentially, someone trying to create their circular economy up in New Hampshire in their little town that they live in. And, the guy's got his own church. So like there's like a religious practice kind of behind it. And I don't know if that was strictly because he was trying to fall out of reach of the federal government in some way or not. But, like to me, his crime is trying to create a circular economy with Bitcoin, like that, pure and simple, like using it, spending it, getting merchants to have it, allowing merchants and other people to swap out a Bitcoin to pay their expenses. To me, that's all that was happening from my point of view, from reading all the documents and posts and stuff. But he was big enough, and he was a target. He was a big name. He was a podcaster for some libertarian or free state movements, something like that. And it's just like an example, in my opinion, of like if you're big enough, if you put a target on your back, a big enough target on your back, they'll go after you. And then everyone else pleaded guilty for some plea deal in the case, except for the main dude. And so he's going to be facing trial, I believe, in March of this year.
Wow.
But it's like one of those cases where like to me, like they're going to like claim money laundering. They're going to claim fraud. They're going to claim like the lack of like KYC controls and the lack of like money transmission license and stuff like that. But this has happened many times throughout history, just with smaller people. And I think there was, in one of the recent articles that came out, he talks about like, hey, like I just happen to be like a quote unquote popular enough figure that you hear the story, but all the time people are getting like sellers on Bitcoin peer-to-peer marketplaces, like local Bitcoin and stuff. Like you put enough volume in, you're putting a target on your back, an easy target on your back, where all it basically takes is like one law enforcement officer to do a trade with you. And then boom, like you're okay. They're going to claim this. They're going to claim that. Like they'll say something little. They'll say something like, oh yeah. I'm trying to, pay my drug dealer or something. And then if you go through with that deal anyways, then they're going to get you on enabling, criminal activity. They're going to like throw whatever book at you that they can throw at you under their legal structure. And not only that, I mean, there was Mark Hopkins up in Dallas. He was busted a few months ago. Well, I think he was busted even before that, but he actually went to prison a few months ago. Ended up having to plead guilty because, he and I knew him back in the Dallas,
Really?
Dallas OG days, 2017, 2018. He was a really good guy, stand up dude. Just enabled people to buy and sell Bitcoin with fiat. And just a few shady characters ended up utilizing him. And, a slip of the tongue here and there, some things that he said that he probably shouldn't have said in a certain way. And then now they were trying to get his wife caught up into it too. They were trying to say, okay, here's 15 charges against you. By the way, that New Hampshire case, there was like 15 or so charges brought against them. Most of them dropped by the time it actually, got to court. They try to scare the shit out of you. And that's what they did with Mark and his wife. They said, well, your wife's name's on this bank account too. So we're going to go after her as well. And we're going to throw both of you in prison, and your children are going to go to foster care, and you'll see them maybe in 5 to 10 years.
Gosh.
It's like these people are corrupt. They despise us. They're trying to pay for their own salaries. They're trying to validate what they're doing, and they're trying to fucking go after you with all that they got, with all the resources available to them. So in my head, well, then we have to go at it with all the available resources to us, right? All the things that make us more private, all the things that make us more secure. Because it's a war. It really is a war.
Who do you think that war is against? Do you think it's a war against making sure we own our own privacy, like we own our own private information, or is it a war against an establishment or a regime or like some power of a sort? Like, what do you think this war is?
I think it's the war, but the other way around. I think it's the war against people challenging the status quo. It's the war that the government and nation states are having against people that are fed up with the way that things are currently running, and they want to operate in a different way. And that different way, if it is a big enough impact, could really threaten and challenge the people in power. It's a war. It's a war power. And if we're challenging the power structure, if we're challenging how they make their money, their cushy little lifestyles and their fiat jobs in DC, then that's what they're going to come after. And, all it takes is like knocking down a few targets to just scare people.
Yeah. Big profile names.
They don't care if it's just like some guy got locked up innocently, like
Ross.
Yeah, Ross, dude. Double life plus 10 or 15 years. It's like they don't care that basically he was operating a website, dude. Like that they didn't see it that way. They 100% saw it as like, well, we have to get ahead of this now. We have to throw the books at this dude to stop anyone from trying to do this again. I mean, there's been like Silk Road 2.0s and 3.0s that have come after him, and some of those guys have gotten caught. Like some of them less than 5 years.
That's crazy.
And then some of the charges that they were going after him ended up, Ross specifically ended up getting dropped too. But but sometimes but that perception still stay like, oh, this is a really, really bad guy. Like he's operating a website that's honestly like doing more for drug safety and drug prevention than any other government effort anyways.
I think the surprising thing to me when it comes to the drug enforcement agencies and those like is that literally right down the street right here, there's 4 guys selling drugs every day and no one stops them. If anything, I think those guys are informants personally. Like, I lived in Austin long enough to understand, like, those guys are informing APD, and that's how that game works. And the reason they're right there on 6th Street is because they get all the new people that come into town, they come party on 6th Street, and they're literally there to gatekeep. And it's a sad reality that no one wants to talk about. When I had Clinton on about 4 podcasts ago, we were talking about that. Right. And then, there was a shooting, and then I think there was another shooting like on East 6 or whatever. And it's like these things just keep happening, but they happen because the system as we know it right now is corrupt. And it's corrupt because they're trying to create all these funnels to get people into jail. And then that leads to a whole nother discussion. But to your point, like, Silk Road, was it like a better place to buy drugs? I don't know, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just a sad reality that we live in, dude.
Yeah. It's I keep saying that more Bitcoiners need to be operating under the street smarts of the people that are like outlaws already, and live outside the boundaries of the law. Not to like, do anything illegal or anything. Just like, we need to have that awareness that like what we're doing right now, the simple things, it's fun. Like, I have a lot of fun here in Austin, and we all get drunk and drink and hang out and have fun all the time. Right. But like, it's, if it goes the direction I think most Bitcoiners think it could go, not that it will go in a terribly, negative dystopian future. But if some of that turns out to be true, and some of that is right, and Bitcoin does challenge fiat, I don't think it's going to be very fun for anyone in that world. But for 2, it definitely won't be fun for the people that are going up against those that still hold the reins of power and that corruption that they still hold. They could be informants. How many people do you think in the Bitcoin industry are informants already? It's a thought that comes to my mind a lot. Cause that's why it's like you like using privacy tools, but also being very aware of what you say, and who you talk to, and what you end up doing is very important. Like, I probably think about that more than most things. And like, that's the thing. Not to like throw out the, well, if, what do you need to hide, conversation, but it's like, there's not much. There's honestly not much. Like, you would think I'm into so many sketchy stuff because like I want so much privacy and I really value it. But the sad reality, like, no, I don't do anything. Like I'm just like a normal dude that has fun with friends, that doesn't want everything I do tracked. I don't want algorithms ran against me. I don't want things to come back in 10, 20 years as like, oh, that was a Bitcoiner that said that once. Let's go get him. I'm just trying not to be the lowest hanging fruit. And it's like, wow. Yeah, I mean, that's really the reality of the situation. I know I'm far beyond the low, like not being the lowest hanging fruit. Even just living a normal life, not caring about privacy. I know I'm probably fine, but I want to be as far away as the lowest hanging fruit as I can.
I think the interesting thing, at least for me, like talking about privacy, and I think it was like 2020. I think it was 2020 when I launched Thriller Bitcoin. We started writing like journalistic pieces about the WEF and about like, the whole thing with that. And dude, I remember I think I told you this, like the FBI I'm pretty sure it was the FBI that was following me early on. Like, they would go to my church. They would follow me to church. They'd follow me to my apartment. They'd follow me like anywhere I would go. And it was just kind of interesting. I was like, wow. Like, and it was the same guy. Cause I had a friend at the time that she would tell me, she's like, that same guy that was there at this one was also there at this one. And then I knew for a fact was when I went to church one day and the guy was literally like in the church. It was like the scene you would see from a movie. He was like in the church. He didn't know any of the Catholicism, like cadences or in a procession, any of that stuff. You could tell he was just there. And then I waited there, and it was raining that day. And he literally was like waiting outside because when I came outside, then he left.
Yeah.
It was just like, that's when I knew early on, like, hey, there's this, like, there's consequences to what you write. There's consequences to who you're associated with. And then when I started working for TFTC, I felt like even more came, and that would come through a different sort.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a real thing, and I never talked about this publicly, and I apologize to people that I might have said things about, but it was one of the main reasons why I've been more public and more open with my life, and letting people know, like, I'm on this journey in the light, and it's a reason to get ahead of whatever is going to come later for you, I would say. And that's why I kind of live in, I want to say I live in public, but I'm a very open guy. Like, who you see car here is also the same car that's at home, in his apartment, is the same guy. And then who I'm there is also the same guy that you'll see like at a Mercado or like wherever. Like, I'm that guy 24/7.
Yeah.
And it had a lot to do with me being followed early on.
I think that's a valid approach too. I think Kyle says that a lot as well, just being open in public, and like, I'm not hiding anything. I'll tell them our plans, straight from the get-go. And they can try to stop it if they want to. And I think there's some validity in that. And that's the fact too, is like, in a lot of cases, they aren't hiding it either. The feds aren't.
They come to PBS. They show up to PBS. Like, we had that one guy show up to PBS, and he literally told one of the guys, because they went to Shiners, it's like, oh yeah, I work for the FBI. Yeah. I'm like, what? It's like, they're not even hiding it. Like, no, they're probably all over Austin.
I mean, if you've seen any mafia movie, like, it's anytime there's a funeral, it's like they're all out there in the rain, like 40 feet away, like taking pictures of everyone at the funeral, right? Like, this is an iconic, movie, so not to dramatize it too much, but it's like, I think that's definitely a valid thing. They aren't hiding it, but they have the power and resources that they're not the ones that need to hide.
I think the biggest thing for me is like, I just don't want to get offed by them. Right. Like, that's my biggest thing, is like, at least let me finish what I want to set out to do, is like, bring, more Bitcoin companies out there, help more developers, help my community. Like, let me get all that done first before you come after me and like try to take me. That's my biggest fear, especially riding a motorcycle these days, is like, of course they could just go up to it and like do whatever they wanted to. And like, there's nothing I could do it, but like, at least give me the opportunity and at least go out and do that first. That's my hope.
Yeah.
Whether I get there or not, we'll see.
It's just one day at a time.
Do you think that's a possibility? Them taking out people?
Yeah. I mean, not to be too, paranoid or schizophrenic about that, but it's possible. I mean, when you look into some of the bizarre deaths, such as I'm terrible with names, but the guy that was really popular in the 3D printing industry last year was again, I don't know his name.
Oh, you don't have to say his name, but what happened?
It was basically, he was really popular in being able to 3D print sophisticated weapons. And, one day they raided his apartment when he wasn't there. And then 3 days later, they found out like he had a heart attack in his car parked in front of his parents' house.
Oh, wow.
And just like spontaneous heart attack, like young dude, just randomly has a heart attack in the front of his parents' house. Like, he's on the run, and I don't know what, just like apparently just got to his parents' house and he's just dead in his car. I don't know. Are we still buying Epstein's death? Like, it's kind of like one of those situations where it's, they have the resources and technical ability and can hide their tracks. I mean, it's one of those things that's always possible. It's just like whether or not it's feasible, or it's, because if it were to happen too much, let's go to the extreme side of that situation. If everyone we knew, or not everyone, but it started being a popular thing that like people are getting offed.
I think there were people would clap back, right? Like
I mean, wouldn't that piss you off?
I would be very upset.
Like, wouldn't that really
Yeah.
drive you further more than anything else to just take down the system if that's what you believe will.
I hope that's why I hope they don't do that. I hope they give us enough time to let us show them that, hey, we're all operating in the light, that we are doing these for, like, we're trying. There are conversations that I have inside of Plub Lab, and I won't say who it is, but like, it's America, right? It was founded on these ideals, and we're just trying to get back to that America. If anything, we're patriots, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of what I've said so far has probably like seemed dark or like very defensive, but like that's the thing. Like it's not my objective to go to war. That's why I said I think it's the reverse. I think it's them trying to have a war with us in our way of going about currency that isn't controlled by them, right? It's not us going like, okay, here's how we take down the government. Let's start using it. It's not that. It's like, here's how we take back our control, like be responsible to each other, responsible to ourselves. Here's how we're not dependent on a single point of failure.
If anything, it makes America and the U.S. more resilient. And you've heard certain people in the space, that aren't liked, but they have a point when it comes to like proof of work and all that type of stuff when it comes to mining.
Right.
If anything, it makes America a lot more resilient.
Yeah, especially the energy grid. But yeah, and that's the thing. So it's like, but I think it's a reality that we still have to be defensive, right? Like we have to prepare for worst case scenarios. Even if what we're doing, we believe is like, the peaceful protest, like us just using
opting out
an alternative currency.
Yeah.
Right. That's all we're talking about here. Us not using something that they control. And if that is going to be a big deal, because then they start, losing power, losing profits, losing the ability to control citizens, that's on them. And based on how they react is like how we should react, how we react towards that, how defensive we get, how much we try to protect. And it could get bloody.
Do you think lightning helps with that? Do you think lightning is the solution that gets us there?
I mean, I think Bitcoin is the solution. Anything that we can do to make it easier and to scale it helps. Like, lightning still has a long way to go. And it can be a solution for certain circumstances, but I think just in general, Bitcoin is what helps us to that. So by extension, Lightning helps, right? Like it definitely doesn't hurt it. And anything we can do to make Lightning better and possibly alternative scaling solutions to Bitcoin as well. Anything we can do to make using Bitcoin and opting into Bitcoin and earning in Bitcoin, buying things in Bitcoin, anything that makes that easier, I think helps.
Okay, let's switch gears a little bit because I want to talk about a little more about Lightning privacy and all those aspects. We hang out with nothing but, it seems like these days with Lightning developers. I'm very see any like Bitcoin developers, or I guess you guys are all Bitcoin developers, but I feel like I hang out with Lightning developers and the privacy aspect of it. Is the Lightning Network private?
It's not private enough. I will say that.
So you're saying that it is private then?
There's some privacy aspects to it, especially on the sending side. But there's definitely ways that it's not very strong. Like there's a lot of nuances, right? Like it's like sending an on-chain Bitcoin address, right? Like if you're just one user or one pub key sending to another pub key, like public address, they're like, oh, well, my name's not attached to it, right? But then there's all these nuances, like, well, has that address ever came from a KYC exchange before? Does it match certain spending behaviors? Like, even on-chain Bitcoin, there's a lot of nuances. Lightning is the same way. Like, are you using someone's mobile app? That's like, the LSP. So they basically see everything that you do anyways. Well, then it's like, you're not really getting good sending privacy anyways. Even if the Lightning Network has good send privacy guarantees, it's like, who knows what? And, like if you're using something like Moon or another, Breeze or Phoenix or whatever. There's an LSP, and generally you don't connect to anyone else besides them. They basically, they don't know who you are as a person in most cases. I don't think they have any sort of like accounts or email. Well, I think Moon has email address stuff, but it's very light as far as like what they know about you. So, you could say that that's good. You could even use it, I believe, without linking an email address and stuff. So that's even better. But they can still see like, your IP address if you're not using a VPN. They can still see all the transactions you sent, all the transactions you received. Maybe the end destinations, like if I'm paying for like a coffee at a store, they probably won't, be able to, to a high degree, they won't be able to like see where that came from. Although they can see, it came directly from the Moon LSP. So this must be a Moon user. Like that's probably as far as like a normal receiver and merchant will be able to guess from a spender. But that's like enough for possibly like, warrants to be issued, subpoenas to be issued, things like that.
Yeah.
If it ever got to that point, and we haven't gotten to that point, I believe. I'd be curious. I think we need to see more warrant canaries in the space. Like whenever law enforcement has like requested information on a particular user. But that's the thing. All it will take is like one or two subpoenas for like, law enforcement to be able to see, some of the information about people spending and receiving habits if they're using like a mobile LSP or something.
Do you think like firms like Chain Analytics are helping or hurting Lightning privacy?
Well, I think Chain Analysis has like done one Lightning offering. I don't know anyone. I think that was maybe a year ago. I don't know anyone that's like used it or has any information about it. Like they kind of keep some of the products and stuff secret. So until someone actually uses that product and leaks the information, we don't really know what they're doing.
Do you think it's better like some of these in-house, like I know Kraken has like a Lightning channel now, right? And do you think it's better if like some of these exchanges and bigger channels just do their own in-house kind of analytics?
Yeah, probably. I know Coinbase went in that direction. And one of the things that they ended up doing was acquiring I think it was literally called the hacking team to do it. And then they started, they went in the bad direction, right? Like they did it to have like more control over the analytics, and also probably to keep, have less third parties, right? Like if they're sending all of their on-chain data history and stuff and queries to Chain Analysis, then Chain Analysis has a lot of information about Coinbase users. Coinbase, the business. So I think you're right. Like, yes, if you're going to do it more in-house. But Coinbase took it a terrible step further, and they decide. So after they did that, they said, well, this was a very bad acquisition. We have to be able to come back from this and monetize it. So we're going to start selling our services to the United States government.
Do they really?
Yep.
And it's on their blog that they did that?
I think Brian Armstrong, like very shortly came out and said like they started taking, what's it called in the government world? There's like proposals by the IRS and DHS and, and, probably BPG,
right.
Or BPG, Border Control or whatever. Where they would do these like $100,000 per year contracts, which is like nothing. It's like you're going to monetize your multi-million-dollar acquisition by selling a few $100,000 per year contracts to the government. Like, no, it's not about that. It was to be buddy with the United States government more, to show that they're a good faith actor, to show that they're complying in every reasonable way possible, or quote unquote reasonable, to try to get their own shit passed, to try to sell more coins that should be securities, to try to get off. I mean, they just paid I heard it was either $50 million or $100 million to the New York government.
Yeah.
And guess what? Their stock went up after they did that.
There's so many Coinbase loyalists inside of Bitcoin. 100%. Yeah. No, there are. They just don't. Yeah. I see it. I've been in the crypto Bitcoin space since like 2017.
Crypto people, maybe not Bitcoin.
But I feel like there's even Bitcoiners, man. Like there's a lot of people that have some of that equity, bro.
We need better friends.
Maybe. But I do see that. It's obvious to me.
Sometimes,
I mean, it makes sense too. They've been around for over a decade, right?
Yeah. I mean, the only example I have is like sometimes people still say like, okay, well, what's the best place to like send your mom or dad? And the easy answer is just saying, okay, Coinbase. But what you're really doing is just like unleashing the cesspool of crap that you're going to have to answer to and clean up. You send your parents over to Coinbase, and then you're going to have to answer, oh, what is this ETH thing? Oh, what is Solana? Like Coinbase says I can get yield. Should I do this? And you have to answer all those stupid questions. And if you don't care about the person, you send them to Coinbase. If you care about the person, then you send them to like River or Swan or somewhere that's like Bitcoin only. Because you're sure sometimes the UX isn't as clean and good as a multi-billion-dollar IPO'd company, with just endless resources to blow. But it's that's the only case where I hear people still sometimes say Coinbase, but I don't think I've heard any Bitcoiner say Coinbase in a positive light in like a year or two.
Yeah. Well, do you think RoboSense is a solution? Do you think stuff like that is a solution? Like, what do you think? What do you think it's these other mobile exchanges that are coming out? Like, where do you think? Where do we send people? Like, or you think it's like BitRamp? Do you think it's like places like that? Or,
I mean, yeah. Ideally, you're not sending people to KYC services, at all. But that's the reality situation. Is like that's still going to be the way easier place for just a normie to get.
But then you get into that conversation of like a 6102, right? Like,
right.
So how do you avoid that?
Yeah. You try to make it as easy as possible to be able to buy and send Bitcoin, especially peer to peer, or it's just receiving it, man. Like you get them start accepting a salary in Bitcoin, maybe like true circular economy. Like anytime you're going between Bitcoin and fiat, it fucking sucks.
Yeah.
Like there will never be a way around it. There will never be a true solution that's like easy to use, anonymous, and basically those two things are like my main requirements, right? Like my ideal requirements, and stuff like BISC and RoboSats, they've come a long way. But again, it goes back to like, well, look at local Bitcoins and all the people that were busted from
now they're KYC.
It's like, and there's like payment methods that you can use on those that, have somewhat of some anonymous behavior to them, like Amazon. You can sell Amazon gift cards. That's pretty fungible. If you want to talk about like less KYC stringent requirements, but like I used BISC before, testing it out and stuff, and I didn't like the bank transfer stuff. Anything that like touched truly like fiat KYC rails, it builds a spider web, a honeypot spider web of users. Like if you think about this user sends a transaction to this user, sure, they don't know it's for Bitcoin, right? But then you see the spider web of like, well, then this person transacted with that guy and that guy and that guy and that guy and that guy. And oh, this guy got busted for being a large Bitcoin trader. Well, then let's see who he was interacting with and who his peers were interacting with. And then boom, you built a spider web of potential Bitcoin buys and sells. And you could get swept up in something simply by doing a trade with a bad guy. I mean, that's kind of how you know, you don't even have to be doing anything bad yourself. Like maybe it's like a few $100s of Bitcoin you're buying or whatever. But if you do that through some, you know, even if it's peer to peer, but some like bank transaction, all it takes is like one bad trade, and you could get a knock on your door and have to answer to that. You know, even if you end up being fine, like you just say like, I bought a few $100s worth of Bitcoin. Like that's not bad. It's like, okay, well, we need to. What can you tell us about this person? And
Gosh.
are you going to cooperate, or you know, things like that. Like it's acting within their surveillance network.
Yeah.
And pretty much anytime you use fiat that isn't like cash. I mean, even gift cards aren't the best solution, right? Like if you look at that rapper girl, that's
the one that
money.
Yeah, I remember that.
One of the ways that they got them was because they bought a gift card with Bitcoin, a Walmart gift card with Bitcoin, and then they used that to buy something on Walmart.com and have it shipped to their home address.
Oh wow, interesting.
Now I don't think that's the only piece that they put together, but like that's apparent.
Wow.
Like, they were mixing some of their funds through Wasabi or something, but there was like some bugs with Wasabi, or like they weren't doing it right. There's a lot of speculation on that, and I don't know what's true or not, but some of their coin joins weren't good enough, or they didn't do it all, or there were some bugs, and a Bitcoin transaction got linked to a Visa gift card purchase, like, or sorry, a Walmart.com gift card purchase. Same thing with like Visa purchases and stuff. That's why like the number one thing that you want to know what I use Lightning for, like,
should you say it?
Yeah, it's fine. It's just buying anonymous Visa gift cards.
Oh, interesting.
With Lightning. So
that's like, okay, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, right? But like, it's one of those situations where it's like senders have pretty good privacy on Lightning. And if I, I hate, there's some privacy aware solutions that try to like solve. I think it's like privacy.com, where you can like, you link your bank account, right? But then you have like dozens of disposable virtual credit cards, and you give one like to each service. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a proxy. But you're still tying your bank account or whatever too. So like privacy.com is holding your information. But at least it's not like quote unquote public, or the merchant knows or whatever. But like that's essentially what I use it for. Visa gift cards. It's like, okay, cool. I'm buying like a server online, or I'm re-upping my subscription to my email
or Uber provider, or something.
Or something simple. Yeah. Or like Netflix. So like, okay, cool. I want a credit card just for Netflix, and I don't want to give them all my information. I'll buy a Visa gift card with Lightning.
Do you think we need to like do like Vortex and LN Proxy and some of these other solutions in between those things? Do you think that's
sender for receiving? You probably should, but for sending, like if you're not, I would probably say like, don't use something like an LSP, like Moon or Breeze or whatever. I mean, you can, you'll probably be fine. But if you want to be as private as possible, set up your own Lightning node, make your own channels to different parties and a variety of different parties, make them unannounced channels. And then whoever you pay, as long as it's not the person you have a direct channel with, like you want some hops.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Right? So it's like I want to, if I'm buying a gift card from the Bitcoin company, and if I want to be as, anonymous as possible, private as possible, I'm not going to open a channel with them and then buy from them.
Gotcha.
Because they'll see, well, where did this payment come from? It came from this node. Well, this is a unannounced node, a private node that has no other channels. So it couldn't have routed through him. Like no one else could have made this payment except this
that
person.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So you want some hops in the middle. So it's like, maybe I'll look up, okay, who's the Bitcoin company connected to? With their node? Who is their node connected to? Oh, it's connected to Bitrefill, or it's connected to this exchange. Okay, I'll open a channel with them. And, even if it's just like one hop, that's still a lot better. Like then from there, it could have been any node on the network that came through that other node.
And would you recommend like using Tor or using some other solution?
Yeah, using Tor. I mean, most, if you're using like a node in a box solution, like Umbral or Raspberry Blitz or something, they're pretty much Tor by default. So you're not leaking your IP address or anything. So,
and then if you're receiving, like, let's say hypothetically, I want to receive to my private unannounced node, something like LN proxy or Vortex makes sense? Or
I
no?
think so. Yeah. Vortex right now, not that's more for, well, you can open channels that way with Vortex, and that would be good to do. Because like when you open a channel, it's very much linked to the UTXO you used. So if that is like a UTXO that came from Coinbase, well then Coinbase knows your identity and probably law enforcement and stuff too. So if you open up a channel with that, well, we know, okay, well, that node is this user or whatever. Plus, if you are like a fully private node and you have unannounced channels, all unannounced channels, no one can pay you unless you leak out that information about that channel. Now, so that used to be the case, I believe now, and I don't know how it's been deployed out, but there's something called short channel ID alias that allows you to conceal the UTXO that you used to open an unannounced channel. So I believe that should be, if people haven't rolled it out by now, that should be how it should act right now. So you should be okay for the most part opening a UTXO, but you have to be aware of like the node you're opening to, like no matter what, like they used to be called private channels, and that was like the wrong name for it. It should have just been called unannounced channels. The node you opened up a channel with, they have to know the UTXO you use. Like there's no way to hide that. Like there's funds locked up. They have to know that funds are actually locked up, and you look at the UTXO for that. So,
yeah, that's some really good advice.
But yeah, LN proxies are really good because it looks like you're just paying out, like anyone that pays that invoice, it looks like they're just paying LN proxy, and then LN proxy will end up paying you, and then you can reveal, your invoice to LN proxy, and only LN proxy knows, as long as LN proxy is not a spook.
Dude, that was one of the coolest things. I remember when LN proxy got released, and you and the guys were here in the lab, and I remember coming over there and asking you to explain it to me and like whiteboard it basically. And I was like, oh dude, that's actually why don't we have this on every, right. Like on every wallet, just like with the option of not incognito, but you know what I mean? Like just a flip of a switch. It just makes more sense.
Right. And before that, the way I kind of said that people should go about it is by, and it's not the best solution because it's using a custodian, but like I would always say, okay, don't send straight from Strike to your node.
Right.
Because Strike will know your node's information. Now, sure, they don't know if you're paying someone or if you're withdrawing. But let's say every month you withdraw from Strike into a certain node. Well, that's probably your node.
Yeah, and we're not, and just to be clear, we're not like saying don't use Strike or don't. All we're saying is like they're at the behest of authorities that come and ask for that information.
Right.
Possibly in the future.
So you can use them. Just, if you want to conceal your Lightning node, and you don't want anyone to know what Lightning node yours is, then don't send directly from Strike to your Lightning node. And I would say, well, maybe first send it to Moon or Wallet Satoshi or Breeze or something. And then, once you receive the payment from there, then make the payment to your true node, because Breeze or Moon or Wallet Satoshi, they might not know that it came from Strike, and they definitely don't know what your user ID was. So they don't know where the source came from, but they do know the destination. And that's about it. So like Strike doesn't know the true destination. And, if you're using Wallet Satoshi to do this, Wallet Satoshi doesn't know the source. So like, they're both at least kind of blinded in what they know. And that's pretty good. So LN proxy has kind of taken the approach of like, yeah, well, instead of just like you're for one, if you're using Wallet Satoshi, it's custodial. So even if you're just like using them temporarily, you're still trusting them with the funds a little bit. LN proxy is like completely non-trusted or trustless by nature. It just like, it holds on to the payment for a little bit. It can't redeem it without sending you funds. So it's like, once LN proxy holds on to the funds, then they can pay you. And then, through the HTLC mechanism, you reveal the pre-image, and then LN proxy uses that pre-image to redeem the funds from from the person that paid them. So it like, it's like basically using Wallet Satoshi trustlessly to do this like proxy thing. So I think it's genius. I'm surprised all the years that I've been in Lightning privacy, like I didn't decide, like it's like 50 lines of Go code.
I know. Yeah.
It's like incredibly simple and done in the correct way. So like major props to Ellen Proxy.
Yeah. Do you think we'll start seeing more and more of that, Tony? Where there'll be these kind of like, I hate calling them privacy tools because I think it paints it in a bad light, but like these safer ways of sending sats. Do you think like there'll be more anon developers creating these kind of safer ways to send sats?
I hope so. I mean, it's kind of a challenge. Like, I mean, you could look at me and I'm not very much, I guess, somewhat of a public figure in a way, very known, like, tied to my face and stuff. But it's like you're giving up a lot of like potential social capital and prestige by being fully anonymous.
Interesting.
And that's like the major trade-off. Now, it doesn't have to be like, if you are persistent enough and you're consistent and persistent enough, you could still get a pretty good online social persona and social capital that way. It's definitely a lot harder. And it definitely doesn't transfer over into the physical realm unless you leak that information. But it's if I'm glad people are out there doing that. And I think we definitely need more of it. If like I always joke, like if I could go back, I would, do it completely. Like, one of my original NIMs was just like completely anon, and then I decided to leak it to my name and face, and then that just kept going, right? Like, and when you first get into Bitcoin for the first time, your first thought isn't to be completely anonymous. Like, you're like, oh yeah, what's Bitcoin? Let me ask around. Let me hang out with Bitcoin people. And then you're like, oh wow, this is a serious thing. This is like something. And then later you think, oh shit, I need to be careful.
Yeah.
And then by that time it's too late.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. I'm the same way.
We're not like completely too late. You can always, but once you've leaked out information correlating your identity, it's leaked out.
Yeah.
I mean, I know more than probably most people on that. Like, there's no clawing that back completely. And then at that point, sometimes it's like, well, then what's the point?
Yeah. Gosh, man, there's a fine line there, right? Like not knowing enough at the time and then going down that path. Let's switch gears. Let's talk about Mutiny, man. That's a project that has been going on for a little while now. I remember when you came up with it, or the idea, but we just had a critique on it last ABDC, and everybody was, even some people that we didn't even know were critiquing it in a good light and stuff like that. But what do you think about Mutiny these days? Do you think it's going to be a full-fledged startup?
I hope so, to some degree. Or at least like a full-fledged like wallet. Like that's like bare minimum goals that I know we want to hit. Whether if it turns into a startup or not. Like, we know we want an awesome wallet and we know we want to do it, in a privacy preserving way. And also the accessibility of it is a huge thing as well. But yeah, you're right. We started building it at the BTC++ hackathon that you guys threw with
Nifty.
Nifty and the base 58 people. Started as like very proof of concept stage back then, and we've just iterated over it pretty much the rest of the year. I guess 6-7 months now already. It feels like an eternity ago.
Yeah, it feels like a long time.
And we've just been working on it in our spare time mostly, for the most part. And then I guess like recently, like November, October, we wanted to go a completely new direction with Mutiny. For one, I got banned from the Apple App Store.
I'm sorry to laugh, dude.
I don't know why.
Hey, it happens.
Yeah,
I mean, they just banned JB55, the Damas thing.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like,
is it actually
not banned, but they just won't let them go on there.
Yeah. They want them to put in censorship.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we didn't even like upload an app yet. Like I went through their fucking KYC process. Everything legit information. I'm still a United States citizen with bank accounts and KYC and government ID, right? Like, I'm not like that off the wall. So like all legit information, and like got approved, got my business approved. Then like the next day they're like, oh, we need additional information. And I'm like, what? Okay. I submitted the additional information they wanted, and they kept denying it, saying that I couldn't have identity verification properly. I'm like, I just did that. Like, why are you making me do it again? And then they email me back saying that I'm some sanctioned individual. I'm like, sanctioned from who? And they're like, well, it's either from the United States Consolidated Sanction List or from some other government's sanction list. And it's actually public. You can look up all the sanctioned individuals from the United States. I wasn't on there. So apparently I'm on some list somewhere in the world that no one will tell me about, and I can't get any information on. Or it's, like confusing my identity with someone else. Who knows?
Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been a mistake, but like after submitting completely valid information, they just wouldn't approve me, and I've had to delete my account since then. And so it's like, okay, well, this is going to be a reoccurring problem. Like App Store censorship, regulations, bending the knee to Apple and even Google Play Store to some degree. And it was like, no. Where we're going, we shouldn't be stopped. And the idea for Mutiny Web was born that way. I think I remember like just laying in bed going like, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
Fuck these people. And then like texting Paul, and I was like, dude, let's go to the web. We can't be stopped there. And he's like, let's do it. And then then like, a week or two later, we start like hacking that, or like, I think the Boltathon started cropping up around then. Bolt.fun. There used to be one called Boltathon. And then got picked up by Voltage, and, half my time, half Paul's time is spent on Mutiny. Shout out to the team at Voltage.
Shout out to Graham.
Yeah, shout out to Graham. It's a good one. And then, it's just, Ben Carmen started helping out with the project in some significant ways. And now it's just like we got second place. So, and that was huge. I mean, we set out to actually put a Lightning node in a web browser, like a real running Lightning node.
You always go for the impossible, huh?
Well, it's not fun otherwise. Like, why would I want to do something that someone else already did?
Yeah. And I don't know if you want to share this background, but we can always cut this out. But like, you were a big part of the Impervious team. You're the one who kind of built the structural foundation for a lot of that.
Yeah, I had to. I saw their idea, I thought it was a good idea, and came on to turn that idea into a real thing. And that was a lot of fun, and definitely getting it out there and getting in the hands of people was really cool. But yeah, that's the thing. Like I always wanting to do new projects and new ideas, and especially if it's something that's like my project and my idea, then that's a lot more fun.
It's cool, man. We saw the demo during ABDC, and it was like the simple things that everybody kind of were saying the same, like opportunities there to make it a little bit better.
That was super. It was. I wrote down everything.
You did?
Yeah, every pretty much every sentence.
Yeah,
I documented.
Yeah, it was interesting too, because like Paul's face was showing up the whole time. So like the whole time it was getting critiqued, you just saw Paul's face. Oh, yeah, man,
the camera was turned on.
Oh man, but it was just
that was super valuable. I mean, that was a lot of really good feedback. And in some ways, I question, well, was it a little bit too early to do that? Like we're still like in this hacking phase and like just making it a real app. And we still have some ways to go. We hope that this quarter we get some, like actual beta application that we can start using and trust a little bit with our funds.
Yeah.
Because right now, I wouldn't trust it with our funds.
Yeah.
And like we're moving fast, and we got something on mainnet, reckless.mutiny.com, mutinywallet.com. And it works, but there's definitely a lot of bugs to fix, and some cases where I've lost money already. Not like a lot, but still a little bit. But yeah, that's the goal. It's like the goal right now is to, really solidify our game plan for this wallet. At the same time, make it a solid, sort of like, Paul's been calling it like node manager, like have all the functionality that you would want in a normal node, like open channel, connect peer, list your UTXOs, list your payments, create an on-chain address, create a lightning address, spend.
Yeah. And you know what?
Very manual stuff.
Yeah. I'm seeing this trend, and it's just like trending in this direction. I don't think it's like anything, but I think you're right. It has to do with the app store. It has to do with like a lot of these authoritarian kind of like old school, I would even call them like from the 1970s, 1990s, like companies that kind of run the web right now in a centralized way. I feel like everything is moving. A lot of these projects, a lot of these startups that we keep seeing over and over are building on the web. Like they're building on this open protocol. And I just see more open protocol building, I guess, for lack of a better word, happening. And I feel like Mutiny is like in the front position to do that. You see that with Damas too as well. Nasser's doing a lot of that stuff. People inside the lab are working on that aspect of it. Do you think that's a trend that just kind of keeps just going to happen naturally, just because we all feel that kind of that old kind of I don't even know what you would call that old tech.
Yeah, it's like I would say not necessarily the old tech, but like very centralized like tech. Like I think it just comes from like over and over and over again, us getting tired of
asking for permission
asking for the way it was built before. Like, I don't think anyone likes email, dude. Like not one person. I mean, sure, it's an open protocol, but it's been completely hijacked because it has a fundamental spam issue that only large centralized companies have really gone out to try to solve. And they do it by pretty much cutting out any self-sovereign usage of email address. I mean, there was a post on Stacker News a few months ago about a guy that was like, well, after 4 decades of running my own email server, I shut it down because I couldn't get emails.
Oh yeah, so
no one could get emails. It's an open protocol, but it completely cut out of it. Same thing with like social networks. And this is one of the reasons why Nasser is getting a lot of traction right now from people just fed up with centralized anything, dude. Anything that's centralized and like potentially regulated or not censorship resistant, people have just felt the pain enough to switch. And I hope, or I can kind of envision something along the lines of where maybe Mutiny can come in, of like, the thing I'm trying to think of, it's bigger than any, Bitcoin wallet or Bitcoin app, right? Like I'm trying to think, how do we get every PayPal, Venmo, Cash App user to switch to something that's like a self-sovereign, Bitcoin wallet? And it would be hard. Not saying it's going to be easy, but how can we like make it cool, make it the next trendy thing, make it something that like people actually see value in, beyond just a Bitcoin wallet, something where it's attractive because people are hitting pain points that this solves for them in an easy way. And I hope we can sort of like possibly disrupt some P2P spending scenarios where it's just like, hey, this is, you want to, buy and sell, or sorry, not buy and sell, just like pay for a haircut, really simply and easy. Like click a link, boom, you have a Lightning wallet. Now you can receive, boom, I just paid you. Like we want that. Or if I send you a link and you click it and boom, you now have a wallet with sats.
Nice.
Like you want some sats, here you go, click this link.
Dude, that works.
And I think it would work. No downloading an app, no like signing up. Sure, we want to have signups and encrypted backups and ways to use your wallet on multiple devices. Like there's a lot of things that we want to build, right? But I think the goal of like just making it the most easily accessible Bitcoin wallet possible as the goal, like the number one, like we're web first for that reason. And then we can like build in mobile apps if we want. We can host it on a server somewhere if we want to, or make some node manager.
Throw it in the Netherlands.
Yeah. Like we can cater to like specific use cases, right? But if we make sure that we're always the most accessible Bitcoin wallet, I think beautiful things can happen after that, especially if we start getting adoption. Like, I think there's that new law that like any PayPal or Venmo or Cash App transaction over $600 has to be reported to the IRS. They're trying to capture every single payment in America. Fuck that. I hope there's enough normal, sane people out there that are just like spending their own dollars in their own way that said like, this is insane. This level of censorship and scrutiny and privacy leaking information is just enough. I hope we can get to that point. And that there's alternatives by that point. Like I want to make Mutiny something that like general people expect out of a payment wallet, and make it easy enough to use. And I think, we're always trying to do, me, Paul, Ben, we're always trying to be on the groundbreaking, cutting edge stuff. And I think we have the opportunity to think outside the box and build something.
I think, you're right. I think a lot of these centralized services, it's just friction that they're creating. And it has nothing to do with like the KYC aspects and all that kind of thing. I think there's a part of that, but I think the biggest problem that I'm seeing that's stopping Lightning adoption, that's stopping Bitcoin adoption is that friction. It's like, we need to remove that friction as much as we can. Like, right. I can spin up the Bitcoin company app and then I'm in there and I'm using it. I can go to Snacker News, then I'm in there and I'm using it. It like all these friction that these KYC and centralized, applications and like projects and like these things, it's just friction. It like you said, like if I want to send somebody sats, right, for buying me lunch, right, I should just be able to send it with a link. Like it shouldn't take any more than just that. And I think what Mutiny and some of these other startups that are coming in now, they're seeing that, like they're seeing the friction that's there. So it's like two things. It's like the KYC is bad for you, and we all know that stuff, but it's also just the friction that it creates. Like if you want a better user experience, you want a better onboarding experience, get rid of all that. Like that's friction.
Yeah.
And we live in a very, and you described it earlier, like in a social capitalized world, right? So a lot of this stuff is only going to be able to come from like these communities that we build here inside of Austin, or these communities like in Nashville, right? Like those communities are where you're going to get the grassroots movement for a project or a startup to get it launched into the world. You see it decentralized amongst with Nostr and stuff like that. But I think we're clapping back to that point where it's just like this whole movement of Lightning and Bitcoin developers are seeing it, and actually it looks like, hey, it's actually right there at that mountaintop, and we're like this far away from it. Like, let's go plant our flag. Like to me, it just seems like that at this point.
Right, and then even the friction part of it, it's like trying to remove the friction of KYC and onboarding process and the KYC wall, or sorry, the fiat walls that are put in place. But just getting someone to download an app has a lot of friction as well. Like, it took years to get my parents to like download Signal. After telling my dad, like, get Signal. But I have a best friend. Like every time we talk on text message, I tell him to get Signal, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll download it." He just doesn't download it. Like getting people to download an app somehow is very difficult. Getting someone to download a Bitcoin app. You want Bitcoin? Oh, go download this app. Go download this app and buy it. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll do that later. Yeah, they just don't like. So there's a lot of friction even getting people to use these apps that supposed to have no friction, and then you get in, and then just a ton of friction of like, okay, well, what is Bitcoin?
But it's even more than that too, Tony. So it's like the time and attention. Like people don't understand that Bitcoin and Lightning's competing with everybody else's in the fiat world. Time and attention. Like if it's taking time and attention away from anything else that you're doing, like that's friction too as well. Like that's what and I feel like we live in this fiat world right now, unfortunately. And the time and attention is far more valuable than anything else, because our fiat dollars are worth nothing. Right. So there's Bitcoin, our store of value there. But then there's our time and attention that no one's valuing these days. But like the Netflixes, the Apples, the Googles, they all understand that. Like they understand that time and attention is the most critical thing, the most valuable thing, I think, in a lot of our lives these days. And it's because we live in this fiat society, and people aren't valuing that enough. And I think if you can get if you can make that friction point where you describe, where you can just go to Mutiny on the web, it makes things easier. It gives you back your time and attention, right? To send a payment, and all these other centralized services don't do that.
Yeah. I mean, I think the dream, probably of a lot of Bitcoiners, is we hope it gets to the point where people aren't even thinking about, they're using Bitcoin, but they don't need to know or understand how it works. It's like, well, who understands fiat today? Like
very little
people. And even the people that know have ideas of how it works. But like, they don't grasp the full extent of markets, global markets, right? Like I don't, as a Bitcoiner, like, it's just, there's so much going on there. Like, no one should have to have a deep understanding of the currency, to use it. Right. So like, I hope that, Bitcoin gets the adoption, it gets the stability, it gets the the people using it and not thinking about it again. It's just like, yeah, this is the number on the screen, and it determines how much of this I can buy. That's all people should have to worry about when it comes to a currency. Mm-hmm. No, sure, there's like, I don't know if we'll ever get that goal, like truly, like, I think some people should probably have some understanding of it, right? But I would hope that it's stable enough and resilient enough eventually that, like, I mean, no one I think about that a lot. Like, I don't want to have to be thinking about money all the time, every day. Like that's what Bitcoin is, right? It's money. And it occupies the biggest share of my mental space all day, every day for years. Like,
that's crazy to think about, right?
It's money, dude. And I don't know if I would go so far as to say like, oh, I don't want to think about money or Bitcoin anymore. I want to get out. But it's just like, it's kind of a shame that, in order to get to where we want to go, we do have to have a deep understanding of money to push us in a progressive, a very positive, scenario in the future. Right. So like, it's kind of the things that like, okay, well, let me hunker down and be the one to really understand money here and try to help build a better money, for everyone. Cause someone's got to, right? Like, someone's got to build the next era of currency, and to help, bring other people on board that may not understand it yet. Right. But that's what we do. We spend most of our time talking about money.
Yeah. Gosh, we do.
And hopefully, the people after us, they don't have to spend so much time talking or thinking about money. And then the people after that, and the people after that, it's just like, oh, okay, I'm using it just like I would use Cash App. Like, no one has like a deep understanding of how Cash App works, or like really, like anyone on Robinhood, like they don't have a deep understanding of how stock markets work, right? It's just like number go up and down. Like, cool. That's all people want to care about, because they shouldn't have to occupy their entire mental space thinking about a currency. They should be doing shit. They should be doing what they're good at. Like, maybe it's selling food or cooking food, or like, some trade or art that they have. That's where they should be spending their space. And the currency just should be a means to an end, that allows them to keep doing what they're good at and providing value for people in this world. So hopefully we can get there with Bitcoin, where they don't have to think about that anymore.
Yeah, it's a beautiful dream.
It all works out. That's what I say out loud, and I'm the one giving advice to you. But as you tell me